My name is Mark Metcalfe and I am a delegate from the Leeds National Union of Journalists branch to Calderdale Trades Council. For a number of years now, we've been looking to honour Halifax Chartists who stood up for local people in the 1830s, 1840s and 1850s. That began by putting up a board in Lister Lane Cemetery to commemorate the 9 people who were buried in the cemetery, and also putting up a plaque at the Industrial Museum that particularly honoured those who came out on strike in August 1842, and some of whom who were then tragically shot down and butchered by the military, who'd been sent down to put down the strike, which didn't only take place in Halifax, but which took place nationally.
I suggest Ben Rushton would be less remembered today had it not been for a most remarkable woman, Harriet Dell. I take up her words again. By the 21st century, his story was known to specialists in Yorkshire Chartism, some local historians, but we could only get a hazy idea where his grave was to be found amongst the 4,000 on the site here at Lister Lane. When we eventually came across it, the knotweed and willow were encroaching fast. The headstone borrowed Robert Burns' affectionate poem. As we learned more about the Chartists, we realised how impressive the groundswell of their campaign for justice and equality had been, and how relevant it still is today.
Men like Ben Rushton must be remembered. The story of his efforts, so many others in Halifax in the mid-1800s made the same kind of efforts to make society better. Halifax was a particularly strong Chartist town. How Benjamin Rushton found time to do what he did, you know, he chaired meetings, he went to as far as Skipton to give lectures. He ran campaigns to raise funds for imprisoned Chartists. How he found time to do all that, I do not know, because, as David said, he was a handloom weaver and he had to make his living. He did share platforms with some of the Chartists' leaders. Fergus O'Connor has just been mentioned. And then after Fergus O'Connor came Ernest Jones. And Ernest Jones had a very special relationship with Halifax. Benjamin Rushton first met Ernest Jones in the mid-1840s and listened to him speaking. He said, "Government will strike him down with the strong arm of the law." When government did strike Ernest Jones down with the strong arm of the law, the people of Halifax kept his family going while he was 2 years in prison. May we long uphold men like Benjamin Rushton as a great example of people who, through conviction, work tirelessly to make changes, to make society better. So, good for him.
Thank you very much, and thanks to everybody who's been involved in organising today. I was a close friend of Harriet Dell, and she would be absolutely delighted to see you all here. She would be totally thrilled about it. I think one of the things that's really important for us to note is actually how important women also were in the Chartist movement. We don't have any women associated with the Chartist movement who are buried here, but we do know that in 1842 a female Chartist association was established in Hebden Bridge. It undertook fundraising and so on, and of course Ben Rushton was a good lad from Ovenden, from North Halifax. Why? Because he married an Ovenden lass. He married Mary there, and that's why they lived in Friendly Fold. And so I think I've been asked if I would speak to you just a little bit to remind us that there was a half of the population that actually was behind this struggle for justice for ordinary working people, that often suffered, was injured, and in some cases died in the coal mines and so on. And as an aside, one of the things that I think is really important for us to remember with all the furore about Anne Lister, Gentleman Jack and so on, is that the lives of the children and often girls who worked in the mines which she owned on the side of Shibden Valley and so on. So there's another side to Anne Lister, a class side that it's really important not to forget. The other thing I wanted to just say briefly is that there have been some really remarkable women in this area, in Halifax, that have worked hard to build on the legacy of Ben Rushton and the Chartists. Women who became involved in the cooperative movement, women who towards around the turn of the 18th into the 19th century and into the 20th century became involved in the campaign for votes for women. Indeed, around here, if any of you go up and have a walk along Queen's Road, you'll see there's a blue plaque there on the side, just near the junction with Battinson Road, which commemorates when one of the Pankhursts came and held quite an effect. We understand was quite an effective public meeting as part of the campaign for votes for women. I'm absolutely delighted that we are honouring Ben Rushton, because what we're also doing is actually honouring the ongoing struggle for workers' rights, for working class people, and for the many, not the few. So thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to hearing more about Ben Rushton as we go on. Thank you.
It's so good to be here, to be part of this historic moment. My name is Vika Smith-Uka, popularly called V, and I'm an organizer with This Was Must For, which is a network of migrants. Today I stand before you to shed light on the inspiring figure of internationalism, such as Rushton William Coffey, whose struggles against racism and borders continue to inspire us in the present days. These remarkable individuals, through their tireless effort, left an indelible mark on the history, fighting for a world free from the shackles of discrimination and division. Rushton, known for his work as an activist, writer, thinker, he believed that human beings, regardless of their race or ethnicity, deserve equal rights and opportunities. Rushton's unwavering commitment to justice propelled him to challenge notions of superiority and inferiority, reminding us that unity can prevail over division. Similarly, William Coffey, an African-American sailor and labor leader, played a pivotal role in the fighting against racial injustice during the 19th century. He tirelessly campaigned for abolition of slavery, an end of discrimination, and striving to create a society with all individuals were treated equals. Coffey, dedicated to internationalism and his rejection of borders and boundaries, transcended his time, serving as an inspiration of generations to come. The struggle of Rushton, Coffey, and countless others were not confined to the past. Their ideas continue to resonate with us today, that guide our own struggles for a more inclusive and equitable future. In our present time, we witness the unfortunate rise of xenophobia, racism, and the imposition of borders that seek to divide rather than unite. We are reminded that the fight against these injustices is not a battle of one nation or one race, but a collective endeavor of humanity as a whole. Internationalism, as championed by Rushton and Coffey and others, emphasizes the interconnectedness of our world and the shared responsibility we bear in creating a more just and compassionate society. No one is illegal. The internationalism of Rushton and Coffey and others serves as a reminder that progress is possible when we stand together. Their legacy reminds us that our actions can create ripples of transformation and extend far beyond our immediate surroundings. Let us forge ahead with the conviction that a world free from racism and borders is not only possible but necessary. Thank you.
We're here to mark their lives, but also to think about their legacies. We have one speaker who had hoped to be here, but who's unable to join us. I'm just going to read his solidarity message. These are the words of Mohammed Taj. Dear brothers and sisters, I feel very privileged to have been asked to speak on this special occasion to honour a great man who throughout his entire existence battled ceaselessly to improve the lives and political rights of his class, the working class, and which constitute the overwhelming mass of the world's population, and of which I am proud to be a member of, as bus worker for 43 years, born overseas from Pakistani side of Kashmir. I have been fortunate enough to read the coverage in the People's Press newspaper of Rushton's funeral 170 years ago this month. 15,000 packed out this cemetery to see him buried here with his headstone paid for by donations. His cortege from Ovenden passed amidst mass crowds who remained silent in tribute. This man is a hero. His wife Mary had, and at this point I am grateful to Catherine Howe's Halifax 1842 classic book, as are we all, died 10 years earlier of advanced dropsy, which can result from pregnancy and from malnutrition. Her body would be swollen and painful. In other words, she died because she was poor. Today, hundreds of millions of people are still unable to get enough food to eat on a daily basis. How wrong is this? Benjamin, a weaver, knew that was the case, and that is why he was a Chartist and a workers' advocate, seeking better pay and improved political rights, which he knew meant greater working class representation in the corridors of power. In 1848, Rushton and Christopher Shackleton, whose own grave is in this cemetery, maintained that the British people should follow the European revolutions, including that of France. Rushton was arrested after the 1842 popular uprising, in which Halifax played a major role, and at least 5 people were butchered by the military. Rushton at the time was letting other people across West Yorkshire know what had happened. It only leaves me to wish everyone well, Mohammed Taj, TUC President 2013 to 2014. A round of applause for Taj, please.
Catherine Howe's book is the reason why we're here today, and also Lister Lane. We want to make sure that everybody, all the Chartists in here who don't have a decent headstone, eventually get a decent headstone. So there'll be an appeal. So if you're in the trade union movement in particular, if you can get your union branch to consider making a donation of £100 here or there, that'd be fine. All the best, Bonnie lad. All the best. Thank you. Benjamin Rushton and the Halifax Chartists. 170 years after your death, you still inspire the people of Halifax and beyond. Your fight against impoverishment, against injustice, remains our fight today. We commit to remember the dead and fight for the living.